We're back. You are chatting with John P. Today, I am going to be answering questions that you have asked me either in emails or on my Instagram, The Real John P. If something's a quick question, I tend to respond to it when I go through my messages, but sometimes the questions I think maybe could be helpful for other people as well. So if I don't answer it there, I make sure to kind of do these videos. I did one of these videos a couple months ago, I think, and it seemed to go over pretty well. So I have some questions here that I think are going to be very helpful and insightful for many people out there. Once again, my Instagram is The Real John P. I put different watches from my collection and different things I'm doing. It's kind of interesting, so check that out and send messages there. On the wrist today, I have a somewhat newer addition to my collection, a vintage LaCultra Value 72 chronograph on actually one of these JB Champion Forstner bracelets. The bracelet's okay, I'll say. I mean, it does the trick, and it's on par for something in the time. I know many people love putting these Forstner JB Champions on their Speedmasters, but it works really well on this Value 72. So by the way, delraywatch.com, so many cool new things. You know it because I see it in the traffic numbers. You guys are having a lot of fun there. So the first question I have here on the list is, hello. By the way, I'm not going to give anyone's names because some people, with their privacy in some of these questions, I'm not sure how everyone feels about that, or other people adding them on Instagram. If any of these people don't mind, maybe I'll do that in the future. But the first question we have is, hello, would you mind giving me your opinions on these two timepieces and valuations? Now, this one, it's kind of unfortunate, but I don't do valuations, and I'll tell you why. You can go to Chrono24 or the forums, Watch Recon, and you can see what watches are being listed for, and sometimes, especially on the forums, what they're being sold for. You can go to eBay and see what watches are being sold for, and you can check out reputable online sellers. You know who they are, the big guys, the small guys, the medium-sized guys, the sellers, you know them. Check it out and see what the watches are worth. I'd love to be able to do valuations, but there is a lot going on. So unless it's something very rare and important, in which case I'd find it very interesting, and I'd probably, spend my personal time looking it up. If it's something like vintage and if something has a certain level of provenance, that would be so much fun to check out. But if it's, hey, what is the valuation of an Omega Seamaster? Unfortunately, I can't do the valuations. I'm sorry on that. Next, I represent the Aguilasser brand, mechanical watch brand. Are you willing to do a product placement? No, I don't do product placements. Sorry, I get reached out to. I don't have the largest channel, but I think there's like a glasses company that keeps beating on my door. Obviously, I wear glasses. It makes sense. And a couple of, micro brands have reached out. It's something I've thought of, but it just doesn't make sense. I'd rather like to just talk about whatever I want in the way that I'd like to, and be able to share as unbiased my opinions as possible. So unfortunately for this brand, not going to happen. What do you think of Bell & Ross watches? Now, there's a little bit of duality in my answer here. So I do enjoy a lot of the designs of the Bell & Ross watches. It's a very young brand. It's a Swiss brand, and it started out as kind of a micro brand. They had their watches produced by Zinn for a while. For a while, early on, they used some German case manufacturers to make their cases, far before now, where they come out with original designs and they have original cases, and, they're a very reputable Swiss brand. That wasn't always the case, but it's a great success story of two guys that turned something from a small micro brand and quickly grew and developed a larger Swiss brand. And this is something that few micro brands are able to do today. I see kind of maybe Ming going in that direction. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure their production volume, but we'll see. And so Bell & Ross watches, they are there in terms of quality, commensurate for the retail prices of the watches. I think when you start getting into, like the BR123 and some of the more classic styles, I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to get the newer iterations of that watch. Sure, there's going to be some movement changes, but in the underlying watch is pretty much the same when you start talking about their classic lineup. So the watches, they're there. If you really love the brand and the styling, I would say try to get a really great deal, because unfortunately they don't hold value too close to the retail prices, but very few brands really do. That being said, Bell & Ross is on the far end of that, really not holding much of the value. But if you love the watch, and I always recommend, try to buy what you really love, because if you're not wearing it, it's sitting in a box, it's sitting in the back of your safe, what are you really doing with that anyway? It doesn't really, help you enjoy the watches, and you probably enjoy watches if you're watching this channel, I would wager. Next. Hi, I recently found you on YouTube. I'm looking to change careers. Could you show me the ropes? The thing is, there's a lot of ropes with watch dealing. There's a lot of positives. There's a lot of negatives as well. Now, if you love watches and you have a passion for watches, the positives are going to far outweigh the negatives. And I think that kind of idea could hold true in literally anything that you could do for a living, whether it's, you name it. If you can make a living doing what you really love, that's really great, even if there are some nuances. And in watch dealing, it's kind of a tight-knit community, and it's difficult to crack into. I mean, I was in tech for the longest time, and I could tell you, 10, 12 years ago, just starting out in my career in tech, I always thought in the back of my head, I would love to work in watches, but I got in tech because that is what, was for me something I also really enjoyed, and it turned out to be, pretty well for myself. But it wasn't really scratching that itch for something I really wanted to do, and I didn't know that you could crack into it. So I do get asked this question all the time, and maybe a year or two, maybe 2 years ago now, I put together a little bit of a course. I don't talk about it much. I don't really push it. Sometimes I put the link in the description. I'll put it here. I spent a few hundred hours putting together all this information and shooting it and putting the videos out there. Some people have taken advantage of it, but once again, only if that's something you're looking to do. I really don't push that anymore. But for this particular person, check that out. Link in the description. Hey man, I've listened to your advice in the past and bought an Omega. Omega is a brand I think is doing great things. I talk about it in a lot of my videos. They're really pushing the envelope and trying to fight Rolex. And I think they do a great job at kind of captivating watch collectors, by the way. So he goes on to ask, what do you think of Frederic Constant? Here's the thing. When Frederic Constant was really starting to gain the attention of collectors and authorized dealers, I want to say 10 years ago, I saw them in the store. I was very unfamiliar with them. They were a much smaller brand than they are today, using stock movements. They still do sometimes, but now they have in-house movements. They have unique designs that they're actually trying to build a brand. And when they came out, I kind of felt like they were just ripping off Vacheron and Patek Philippe. Their logo used to be a very close, it had so many styling cues. It was basically a ripoff of the Vacheron logo, and the whole overall brand and the aesthetic early on was kind of a rip on those kind of holy trinity prestigious brands. But over the years, the last decade, Frederic Constant has really started to prove themselves, including developing in-house movements and manufacturer movements, and do some very interesting things and come out with very interesting designs that are not just rip-offs, quote unquote, that maybe they were perceived to do in the past. Now, they still do come out with watches that are, that Genta-esque design, but everyone is doing that, even the biggest brands. So they get a pass, in my opinion, when they come out with their recent, I'm forgetting the name of the model. I don't spend a lot of time with Frederic Constant, and truthfully, we don't get many through the door, but they have a model that looks a lot like, an Audemars Piguet, Royal Oak, or something in that vein, that integrated design. So something to look out for. I think, once again, it's a brand that if you get a really great deal on, and I think you could probably get up to 30% off, you love it, it's got a good movement, why not? Especially because if you love the design and you're going to wear it, that's great. I think that it gets the pass, and I think watch collectors no longer are really dismissing it as a brand that is a copy, in my opinion, and also from what I hear from other collectors. Moving on. Hey man, a lot of people with this hey man thing. Anyways, hey man, quick question. In a month or so, I'm going to be buying a Submariner. Should I get the 40 or the 41? So they're basically asking, but based on value. So they're basically asking, should I get the latest iteration, which is the 41 millimeter with a little bit slimmer of a profile, or should I get the 40, which was a little bit, that wore a little bit different And some might say that they even feel like the 40 wears a little bit bigger. Now, yeah, there's going to be some differences in value. I think the 41 is just going to be it's going to be a newer watch. So when you're looking at prices of these watches, you can get a Submariner in the old style that's going to be much older, and you're going to be able to get it for a lower price because there's not just as many of these 41s floating around yet, this being a somewhat recent release comparatively to the 40. That being said, I think the pricing is going to be negligible on this, especially if you're looking at this a couple years into the future. Now, condition plays a big factor, as well as box and papers, but really the condition, the amount of polishing, all of that is going to play a role in the value of these watches. But if we want to look at this long term, I don't think, in my opinion, there's going to be much of a difference. So I would say, like I'm saying with the other questions that were very similar, buy which one that you're actually going to wear. So if the 41 doesn't fit right on your wrist, but the 40 does, and we're talking about a difference of maybe there's $1,000 difference in the value retention in the future. If you're not wearing the other watch, what is the difference going to be, right? You could take that difference and divide it among all the days that you actually wore the other watch, and you end up with a better value actually, because you may have paid whatever it is, a couple of dollars or less per day to wear a watch, whereas the other one sat in the safe because you're waiting to sell it until the value catches up. In my opinion, I think you should buy the watch that you're actually going to wear. Next, do you take crypto? Unfortunately, we do not accept crypto payments at Delray Watch. We actually looked into it. There's a couple of different options out there that will allow you to accept different crypto payments, including BitPay. But with our platform and what we're doing, it's not really a priority for us. They also don't integrate with our e-commerce platform that we are using. Maybe we'll look at it in the future, but with valuations going up and down on these things, I get it. There are options where you can get, cash equivalent in that transaction, never actually have to touch the crypto. I do know some people that have tried accepting crypto and they haven't really seen an increase in business. So as much as we'd love to be able to offer crypto if people are asking for it, it just seems like now is a lot more hassle than it would be worth it for us to kind of adopt that process. And there's so many things I feel like are up in the air with crypto. I'm not against crypto, but I'm necessarily not for it yet. So for us, we do not accept crypto, in short, at delraywatch.com. Next question, my local AD, and this is a good question, by the way, because I've got this quite a few times. My local AD called, and they have a leftover Hesselite Speedmaster from 2020. Will this become rare? No, I don't think so. If you were going to buy that watch, you like that better than the new style of Speedmaster with the applied logo, yeah, sure, get the old one, but I don't think this is going to be anything that's going to be super rare. I mean, maybe if we want to talk hundreds of years in the future, then of course it's going to be a rare watch hundreds of years in the future. I mean, come on. But in terms of years or decades or even a century, it just wouldn't make sense for that to be a rare watch because they made that reference for so long. And there's nothing about the movement that's in it that's necessarily going to make the watch stand out. Like when we start talking about 321 Speedmasters, they put that movement with the last Speedmaster Hesselite Professional. They put the movement in so many different watches. It just or variations. It just doesn't even make sense for anything about that watch to make it rare. Now that being said, it might hold value, but this isn't going to be a watch that you should get in terms of necessarily investment. I think Speedmasters will still be in demand into the future. It's iconic and classic. If probably the most, besides the Daytona, it's the most notable chronograph that exists besides the Daytona for those that are going to mention that. But nope, not going to become rare or collector unless maybe it's a special or limited edition Speedmaster, but not the off-the-shelf stock version. No way. And lastly, hey John, I will be in the area. Can I come by the shop and try on some watches? I am unsure which watches will wear well on my wrist. Bit of a tongue teaser there. Unfortunately, we do not have a retail store. We have offices here in South Florida, but we're an e-commerce business. We are very bullish on e-commerce, especially with things like the pandemic that happened. E-commerce is really, I think it's really solidified as the future. That being said, there are some brands out there that are trying to, branch out and get back into retail, open up and, have you walk in and try on watches and provide more of an experience. But generally we are, surprisingly, we are working with a lot of people that know exactly what they'd like to purchase when they call. So they call or they email. Generally, people are purchasing watches from Del Rey Watch without asking very many questions. When we ask them and we send out some surveys, people they almost do the research. They know so much. They know the exact model and reference that they're looking for. They may have tried it on in a store. So that being said, sometimes we do recommend that. If it's a watch that's still being produced, or maybe there's something comparable or similar, try it on an authorized dealer, try it on at a boutique, and then give us a call and we'll give you the best price, is something, we would say. But then when you also, when you go to the boutique and the authorized dealer, they'll also say that that's very common. People go in and they find something, try it on, and then, then they buy it online because it's a better price, or so many other similar reasons. And that the same thing goes on with Best Buy and all the other stores. And that's why you see some stores going out of business or consolidating their footing there and the number of stores that they have. So in short, we are online e-commerce only, unfortunately, for those that like to try on the watches. That being said, we are considering this in the future. So for some reason, we'll give everybody exactly what they want, right? So we're in business and we want to make sure people get what they want. So if there's enough demand in the watch collecting community for us to open a store, overwhelming demand where it actually makes sense, then of course we're going to do it. And something that's, we have and we're aware of, and we have some rough plans in case, the market actually does want that. But at this point, it seems like really e-commerce is here to stay. And with that, honestly, comes better prices, because if we had a retail store and all the additional insurance, we'd have to raise the price, and we'd rather deliver what we believe to be a much better price and experience by being online. Anyway, guys, any other questions, find me on Instagram, The Real John P. Don't forget to check out Del Rey Watch. Like and subscribe if you like this. And even if you don't like this, why not like and subscribe anyways, because it's good karma. Thanks, guys. You've been chatting with John P. Ciao.